The topic which I would like to discuss today is the European Union in its relation to Central and Eastern Europe. Here are the issues which I'm going to address. In my introduction, I would like to briefly remind us of the Cold War division of Europe into two halves and its post-Cold War developments, that is, the emergence of what was called the new Eastern Europe. Then, in the first of the two main parts of my talk, I shall try to look at how the European Union tried to define Central and Eastern Europe through association agreements, which were also known as Euro agreements. Then I shall pass to European Union enlargement, which was another attempt of the EU to define Central and Eastern Europe. And I shall discuss things like the decision on enlargement, the conditions of it, and the negotiation process and accession process. And then I come to conclusions in which I shall be arguing that we witnessed a transfer from Eastern Europe through Central and Eastern Europe to the new member states and beyond. As always, when we deal with the European Union or European integration, we need a table of acronyms. The European Union is the EU, Central and Eastern Europe is CEE, Central and East European countries would be abbreviated as SEEC, and new member states are NMS. Let us briefly remind ourselves of how Europe was divided after the Second World War during the Cold War period. We had two halves of it, and one was in the late 80s, the emerging European Union, the communities which were integrating deeper and deeper, and there were also other countries. And they were referred to as Western Europe, or simply as Europe. In the East, we had the Soviet bloc and other communist-ruled countries. That was the Soviet Union, its satellite states, and other countries ruled by communist parties. And that part of Europe was referred to as Eastern Europe. In 1989, the momentous year of European history in the 20th century, we witnessed major changes in the continent, beginning with Poland, going through Hungary, Czechoslovakia, the GDR, Romania, the Baltic republics of the Soviet Union, Bulgaria, and Yugoslavia. Those countries liberated themselves from communism and established themselves as democracies and started building a free market. Thus we have the emergence of Central and East European countries. When the political changes were occurring in the new Eastern Europe, they were a kind of a surprise for the West. The countries of the European community were just about to launch a major integration project which was named the European Union. The changes in Central and Eastern Europe were not only a surprise, but also a major challenge and a problem. What to do about these countries? Especially since the countries of Central and Eastern Europe, one after another, started inquiring whether it would be possible to become closer, to come into a closer integration with the emerging European Union, or even whether it would be possible to become members of the Union. The immediate reply from the European community, which was turning the European Union, was not membership, but association. And here we come to the first of the two parts of this lecture, how the European Union defined Central and Eastern Europe through association. Let us first look at what an association is in the European Union system. The Treaty of Rome, establishing the European Community, defined an association in this way. The community may conclude with one or more states or international organizations agreements establishing an association involving reciprocal rights and obligations, common action and special procedure. That was a very open-ended formula which had various materializations in the European community's past. For the countries of Central and Eastern Europe, the formula which the European community chose was that of Europe agreements. These were agreements establishing association which consisted basically of two parts. The first part was economic in nature. It was to establish a free trade area between the countries of Central and Eastern Europe on the one hand and the countries of the European community, which was becoming the European Union. The second aspect of Europe agreements, which didn't seem to be very important at the time of their signature, was political. It amounted to a regular political dialogue between the countries of Central and Eastern Europe and the countries of the European Union at various levels. What is very important to remark at this point is that the political part of Europe agreements did not contain any obligation on the part of the EU to admit the countries of Central and Eastern Europe as members. What we witnessed in the early 90s was a series of 10 Europe agreements, as they were called, negotiated, signed, ratified, and coming in force between the countries of Central and Eastern Europe and the European Community and its member states. Here we have a list of those countries with the dates of signature and coming in force of those agreements. It's a very interesting piece of political geography, which we may now identify through these agreements. The former communist countries were defined through these agreements as Central and East European countries. And there was a subdivision. There were countries of Central Europe, Czechoslovakia, which later split up into the Czech Republic and Slovakia, Hungary and Poland, and also Slovenia was included into this notion. There were the Baltic states, the former republics of the Soviet Union, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. There were southeastern European countries, Romania and Bulgaria, and this part of Central and Eastern Europe also included the Western Balkans, defined as former Yugoslavia, less Slovenia, plus Albania. The former Yugoslav republics being in a major turmoil in the 90s.